So after your all-day drinking affair, you had promised the listeners that you were going to be wearing a Fitbit to monitor your steps while you watched football on Sunday. What happened?
So that Fitbit I did wear, by the way, and that thing was completely inaccurate because I clap my hands or I move around a little bit and it counts your steps. So I did the laundry. At one point, I was laying down for like 3 straight hours, and I had over 2,000 steps. I'm like, I'm just moving my arms. I haven't moved anywhere.
Better question, why do you move your arms so much while you're hungover watching football?
I wasn't even that hungover, but I was just like getting angry at all my bets and,
That's what it
arms
is.
all around. And I just, apparently anytime you move a damn arm, it counts a step.
Nice. Well, I'm going to try it out on Sunday, but for the meantime,
I'm going to try it again.
Let's get loaded, because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first, because we finish last. Beer.
Yeah, thank you once again for tuning in to the Loaded Box Podcast. We are your hosts, Ben Morgan and DJ Primo. And I've got to tell you, I apologize. We missed our instant reactions episode to week 8 due to a hangover via DJ and absolutely terrible planning on my part.
Worst. Honestly, it's illegal in all 50 states.
I didn't need the reminder, but I was quickly reminded why you don't plan any other thing besides watching NFL football when there is NFL football Sundays to be had. So I apologize. I'm going to take the loss on this one. But with this comes opportunity, and we haven't really done this before, but we're giving you 2 Week 9 preview pods. This first one, the one that we're doing right now today, we're talking a little bit more fantasy football related. We're talking specifically daily fantasy sports, our stacks, our bargains, our advice. And then the next one that we're going to be doing that's going to be released a day or two later is going to be more actual NFL games against the spread, all that great stuff that we'd usually do in one episode. But we're bringing you 2 episodes this week, so hope you're ready. So DJ,
I almost suspended you. I'm just going to say real quick, I almost suspended you for this week for your Sunday performance.
Yeah, I was detrimental to the team. I want to take this time to apologize. In the famous words of Ty Montgomery, I'm going to do me. So now you can do you. Let's kick it off. Your bargain plays. Let's start with your quarterback.
So my quarterback bargain this week is the hot hand, baby. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 7,100 at Carolina. When it's magic, it's magic. And when he's hot, honestly, he's hot. You'll get about 1 to 2 more great games out of Fitzpatrick, and then he'll just stink. He'll suck. He'll be garbage. So I think that the Buccaneers' new strategy, personally, should be start like Fitzpatrick for 2 weeks, bench him before he's bad. Start Jameis Winston for 2 weeks, bench him before he's bad, and just back and forth. And they probably make the playoffs and win the Super Bowl just based off that rotation.
Yeah, not a bad strategy. I'm seeing here the Panthers are 17th versus the pass. I thought they were a little bit better than that. But they're actually, they're not quite as good as I thought. And like you said, man, Fitzpatrick's good for a couple of these games each year. But he's never really had this before where he's in, he's out, he's back in again. And man, that magic was alive last week. And yeah, if it can roll over, he's only, $7,100 on FanDuel?
Yeah, real cheap. And the way he was playing in those first couple of games, I expect him to do that for 2 games like he is. Like you just said, I think Fitzpatrick stinks and isn't the answer, but either is Jameis at this point.
For sure.
But like you said, Carolina is strong up front. I have they're 17th against the pass. Thanks for taking that for me.
You bet.
Along with Tampa's garbage defense, you should see a lot of points in this game, and they're not going to be able to run the ball, Tampa Bay. So they're going to have to throw it.
Right.
Just what it is.
And the deadline just passed, and a hot name surrounding the deadline was Deshaun Jackson, and he didn't go anywhere. Yeah. So you still got O.J. Howard, Evans, Jackson, Godwin. You still have all the targets and everything. So I read a report. It was funny. They said they weren't dealing anybody because they were in win now mode. I almost couldn't get that out right now.
It's a joke.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, when I do my quarterback, I usually provide you with a little stack of the week action. And this week, I'm going a little bit out of the ordinary this time. I'm going quarterback, running back for my stack of the week since I had a difficult time.
Copycat.
What'd you say?
Way to be a copycat.
Oh, my bad. That's your jam.
I did that with Trubisky and Toa.
That's your jam. Well, it worked out so well, I wanted to give it a rip. So I do like some quarterbacks, some higher-end ones, some Mahomes, some Cousins, some Breeze. I consider those for stacks. But my stack of the week this week is going to be Cam Newton. You just talked about this game. Cam Newton, he's $8,600, and Christian McCaffrey, he's $7,900 versus Tampa. McCaffrey has had double-digit points every single week. He's averaging 16 points per game. Last week, Baltimore has this top-ranked defense. He puts up 20. He has a rushing touchdown. He has a receiving touchdown. And Panthers just roll. I mean, they just roll. And Tampa Bay is 10th versus the run. Well, we just saw Joe Mixon go off for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns against them. So I really like McCaffrey, and I talked about it on the last week's podcast. The Panthers are what I consider to be a little matchup proof. Cam, if things break down, he can run. He can scramble, make things happen. CMC, if things aren't going on the ground, he's going to get it done through the air. So then you look at the quarterback side of this stack, and you got Tampa Bay, who's second to last against fantasy quarterbacks. Cam puts up 28 last week against Baltimore's top-ranked defense. He's now averaging, he's been kind of quiet this year because of the whole, Mahomes thing. Mahomes is taking over. All these young guys are taking over the headlines. He put up 28 points last week. He's averaging 25 for the season. He's had at least 2 passing touchdowns every week except for week 1. And I sort of want to stack him with one of those receivers, but I'm afraid of guessing wrong because we've seen DJ Moore come on in the last couple of weeks. Funches can get it done. Greg Olsen is there. There's so many guys. I'm going with CMC because his average alone, he's 16 points per game. I'm going to stack these two against that terrible defense. I'm going to strike while the iron's hot there with Tampa. Going against Tampa.
Can't go wrong against Tampa Bay's defense.
Yeah, absolutely. One more real quick one. If I got a bargain play, what do you think about potentially Sam Darnold? He's only 6,700, but we just saw he's playing the Dolphins. The Dolphins have just been getting torched, and I kept saying, all right, they're going to target the wide receiver opposite Xavier Howard. Well, it was DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins just lit them up. Will Fuller lit them up. Deshaun Watson threw 5 touchdowns in that game. You look at Darnold, he doesn't have a 20-point fantasy game all season, but this week is not going to be near the challenge that he saw last week against the Bears. Weather is not going to be an issue. The Dolphins' D is just a mess right now. So if you're going to go bargain, do you think you can do better than Sam Darnold at 6,700?
No, if you're telling me to play Sam Darnold, Deshaun Watson stinks, and
he's been hot lately.
He stinks. What?
He's been hot fantasy-wise.
Yeah, he's been hot as garbage. Not really, though. This was his, not even close to his best game. They were winning with, on the back of Lamar, a little bit defense. Not really a good team, not really a good player. Won't make the playoffs, guarantee it.
Guarantee.
But if you're telling me, like I said, if you're telling me to play Darnold, I'm playing Darnold. And, the Dolphins' defense is getting just torched.
Oh, absolutely. All right, let's move along here. What is your running back choice this week?
All right, my running back is, I have 2 of them actually, but I'm going to start with Nick Chubb, $6,600 versus Kansas City at home. I don't understand with this matchup how he's only $6,600.
Right.
KC stinks overall as a defense, and they're 25th against the run. So you can pretty much do whatever you want against them. They're tired because they're on the field constantly because they score so fast. But at this point, Baker Mayfield is struggling. Everybody was like, his one game, he's 1-4. 1-4. He had the one comeback game where Tyrod came out. Telling me Tyrod could be 1-4 right now. Give me a break. They should have played him all season.
Wins.
Let it be a bridge year.
That's so many more wins than all the other Browns quarterbacks the last 2 years. It's progress. He's got a tie in there.
Tyrod has a win.
Oh shit. Go ahead. I dropped something.
Yeah. So the best way to keep a good offense off the field, the good offense Kansas City Chiefs, is to run the ball. That's what you need to do. I expect 25 to 30 carries for Chubb and a score or 2. Slam that Chubb this week, baby.
Are you a little bit nervous that this game just gets a little bit out of hand, maybe, and if it becomes a passing game, Chubb sort of disappears?
That's why I said just run the ball. That's what they're going to do.
Well, I can't do that when you're down 21-0 in the first quarter.
Browns defense is good enough to keep hanging around a little bit.
Oh, Browns defense has been struggling recently. I'm going to get to that.
I think they're actually good enough, though. And Myles Garrett can make shit happen. So
yeah,
you never know when he's going to pop out and make something happen.
Yeah,
I imagine that they want to. My whole thesis behind your question here is that they're going to run the ball to keep him off the field. So you can't ask me, am I worried about that? My theory is that they're going to run the ball to avoid that. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Part of the theory also is, you play guys in games where you predict a lot of points, and if Chiefs are going to be scoring, Browns are going to be scoring, and if they get down to 1, it's still primetime spot for Chubb. So what did you say his price tag was?
6,600.
6,600. Okay. I want to do my weekly. It's become weekly, I think, the last 3 weeks now. Todd Gurley update. $11,200.
He went up.
He went up again at the
saw it.
Saints. He is $2,600 more expensive than the next running back. So he had another 30-point game against the Packers, including that play where he could have added an additional 6 points, but he just decided to sit down instead. Does he hit his average this week of 28? Over or under 28 against the Saints?
Under. Saints have a good run defense.
They do, and I think if I had to decide, like, okay, you could use him the last couple of weeks when he's been $11,000, $10,000, and it's been working out. If there was a week to sit him, I would probably go this week just because, the Saints are a little bit better. And man, at some point you can't just continue to score 30 points every week. At some point, it's going to fall off. And if you spend $11,200 on him and it ends up being that week, your roster's shot. You can't spend that much and recover from it.
And I've told you this multiple times in regards to, I know we're talking about Todd Gurley, but I'm jumped to the Packers because that's who they played. Their run defense, the Packers, is going to be the best part about them, and you saw that. I don't know if you watched that game this weekend. You saw that this week. Between Blake Martinez, those two guys, Kenny Clark, and Mike Daniels, you can't look at the numbers when it came to this run defense. They penetrate when they want to. They could dominate. I like that run defense. I like that defense in general, but no big deal. Let's go on to the next thing.
Yeah, plus Gurley got it done through the air a little bit in that game as well.
Yes, that's where he got it mostly done.
Passed down the sideline, the one where everyone cleared it out to the left, and he caught it going to the right and scored.
Nobody covered him.
No, he was wide open. All right, so I want to talk about a running back that I don't believe we've talked about in the entire season in daily fantasy, and that's Kareem Hunt. He's 8,500 at those Browns that you were talking about. He's averaging nearly 20 FanDuel points per game. He had 5 points in week 1. Since then, he has not been under 14. So that is a very safe floor player right there. The last 3 weeks, he's caught 4 touchdowns. He's up to 10 touchdowns for the season. If it wasn't for Gurley right now, Kareem Hunt would be getting a lot more love, but he's sort of flying under the radar. And he's definitely been flying under mine. I haven't even considered him for daily fantasy. But the Browns are 28th against fantasy running backs. Why wouldn't you use him this week? I mean, 8,500, it's not a bargain by any means, but it's a definite guy. Like, if you've got the money, I'm plugging and playing.
I think this goes right into a nice sell-high candidate. I think he's one guy, second half of the season, you saw what happened last year. Reed just got away from it. As far as the coaching goes, I just don't trust Andy Reid. This is actually a guy I'd be willing to sell high, that we're going to sell high, trade him away later in the season, because I just don't. Historically, it's just Andy Reid Chiefs teams just fall off the second half of the season, period. And then last year he just forgot Kareem Hunt was even on his team.
But last year, I mean, that was an epic run. I forgot how many games it was in a row where he had less than 100 yards and or a touchdown. It was just a terrible stretch because he started so damn hot too, and then he just hit that rookie wall so early. The nice thing though this year is he hasn't had to be the focal point. Like it's all Mahomes. So I think. I mean, that's a whole different topic of conversation for a redraft fantasy football league. I'm talking this week against the Browns for that price point.
That's what it is. That's my hesitation. Second half of the season.
Well, fair enough. What kind of receiver are you looking at this week?
I'm looking at Calvin Ridley, $6,500 at Washington. Let's call this one more of a gut here. The Redskins. I don't know why you're laughing like that.
Go ahead.
Okay, the Redskins have one of the best defenses in football right now. They just do. But I think they just got Clinton Dix today, which is weird. But I think they do a good job of taking away Julio this week, and I think that opens up the one-on-one opportunities where I think Ridley's one of the better route runners there are in football. My gut is you see one of those 100-yard big games, a touchdown or two out of him.
Yeah, I want to talk about Ridley maybe a little bit later, either in this episode or the next. We'll get to that. I just want to say real quick, I don't have a specific wide receiver, but the quarterbacks that I talked about earlier, I mentioned them for a reason. Because if I don't go with my Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey stack, if you want to go with a traditional one, I think you're going to have to pay for it this week. Because you can go Cousins with Thielen or Diggs. You can go Drew Brees with Michael Thomas. I love all of those. But a sneaky play that's a little less expensive this week would be going with Sammy Watkins. And my only hesitation with him is he seems like he has a really good game and then it's the Tyreek Hill show for a week or two, and then it goes back to Sammy Watkins. And we just had Watkins score 2 touchdowns last week, so I don't really want to fall into that trap of using him. But I think at the end of the day, this guy is the most complete receiver on that team. And I'm going to talk about him a little bit later in this episode as well. But if you're going to go that route, those are the 3 guys I kind of like at receiver, a little bit more higher end. But what I want to do is play our guessing game, second week in a row, called Who Am I?
I don't like this game.
You do or don't?
I do, but it makes me nervous. I don't want to look dumb.
Oh, no, I don't think you'll look dumb this week. I think you're going to knock this one out of the park.
Even worse, now I'm not going to get it.
All right, so this is a wide receiver. Debuting this season, I was held catchless in my first game. Clue number 2.
Oh, yeah.
I then went on a tear, scoring 6 times in 3 weeks. Clue number 3. Since then, I have not scored or topped 50 yards in a single game. And the final clue, coming off of my bye week, I'm only $6,500, and I play the 13th best pass defense. DJ, I think you know who I am.
I mean, if you guys were listening to what I just said 2 minutes ago, it's Calvin Ridley. That's amazing. We don't plan this. We prep on our own before these games. He doesn't tell me anything.
I'm so
we
upset
just happen
right now.
to do this.
You said that name, and I just got furious. But why I decided to go with him for this particular week is because I saw that price point as well, and I was super intrigued. I'm like, oh my gosh, I see points in this game. I think it's going to be great. But then you look at what the Redskins have done just recently, and they've only given up they've only given up like 14 points per game over their last 3. It's been lower scoring games. But I still think this one's going to be a little bit more of a shootout. But, man, at some point, Julio's got to come on. So I'm torn on Calvin Ridley. So I wanted to see where you fell on him. But apparently you're going to go use him.
Honestly, I'm cheering for Julio not to score a touchdown this year.
How terrible would that be if Julio Jones gets like 1,500 yards?
It would be my favorite thing ever.
Nice. Let's transition into your flex play of the week.
All right, my flex play this week is another running back I thought was just crazy cheap for the matchup he's going against. And the way he's played the last 2 weeks, Lamar Miller, 6,500 at Denver. He's had 100 yards plus and a TD in each of his last 2 games. Now he gets to go and face the 27th ranked defense against the run. It seems like another steal for a guy who should be given the ball multiple times to exploit Denver's biggest weakness, and that helps keep that pass rush, your Miller, your Chubb, Shane Ray, who I thought might be traded, at bay today. So it just seems like he's going to get the ball. He's been playing really well. That Denver run defense is terrible. They ran good against Jacksonville, who's typically that's the first of his 100-yard run games. So.
Right.
Why would he dominate this Denver defense?
Yeah, and the thing with Miller is, I just got a little bit of history with him being a Dolphins fan, is when he was given the ball, he was so good. And you, haven't heard his name over the last 2 years. Really, too much anyways. And last week, getting to watch him against the Dolphins, I saw those glimpses again of just get him the ball. He does a good job of getting the yards, and he still has that home run play, which is why I really like him in daily fantasy, because he could rip off a run at any time. He hasn't really done it yet too much. Oh, yeah, he crushed him. I'm just looking at some of these guys, though, that are more expensive than Lamar Miller, like Tevin Coleman, Latavius Murray, Kenyon Drake. I can't really justify using any of those guys over Lamar Miller. Miller scares me because of his dud potential. He's had some really dud games in the past.
But against Denver,
and who knows what Denver is feeling right now. Earlier today, they traded Demaryius Thomas. I don't know if that's a sign of just getting out of a contract and trying to get something out of it, or if it's, hey, we want to try to build towards the future. But yeah, it's an intriguing matchup. Cortland Sutton, you said?
Yeah, he's balling. He looks good when he gets the chances.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to go into my tight end for the week because, believe it or not, Jordan Reed is still healthy. And somehow he's only $5,600 versus the Falcons. We just talked about them. He hasn't had a double-digit performance.
Has he been playing?
He's been playing, just really quietly.
Let's all be injured.
Yeah, right? No double-digit performances since week 1. But he had a really nice bump in targets last week. He had 12 against the Giants. That was his first time all season with double-digit targets. I think they were coming off their bye week the week before that. Maybe they were transitioning a little bit, trying to figure out how their offense is going to run. We saw Adrian Peterson dominate. I don't see that really happening again. I think they're going to have to pass a little bit to keep up with Atlanta. And Atlanta's 30th against the pass, so I think Alex Smith is going to be throwing the ball plenty. No one on that team really dominates targets. If anyone's going to, it's going to be Jordan Reed. And with how bad the tight end position is, if you have a guy that has the potential to get 10 targets, hopefully a touchdown, then you're looking maybe at like a 15-point game for $5,600. I couldn't do any better this week than Jordan Reed at $5,600.
I told you to take Jordan Reed week 1 just to get it out of the way, so he'll probably get injured for you this week.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I will jinx anyone. Let's talk real quick about Pristine Auction because they are a very kind sponsor of the show. We've got a nice, exciting announcement coming up in one of our very next podcasts, so I'm going to save it for then. But make sure you head over to their website, www.pristineauction.com. Tons of gear for the man cave. Holiday season's quickly approaching. Get on there. It's quick and easy. Free to bid. You only pay when you win. When you register, make sure you mention the Loaded Box podcast. But yeah, all their stuff comes with certificates of authentication. You're going to love it. Make sure you get there. I'm trying to multitask at once. But head over to pristineauction.com today. Get that stuff for your man's man cave. With that, DJ, I know we're doing 2 preview pods today, so that wraps up the DFS talk. But I want to talk real quick because we just had the real trade deadline happen. We're recording this Tuesday night. Several fantasy football trade deadlines are going to be quickly approaching. So
I'm going to be slamming the each team. I am literally looking for trades tonight. So
there you go. Yeah. So what I want to do is talk a couple players maybe that you either want to trade for or that maybe you should be looking to trade at this point, like a sell high kind of deal. And the first guy I have, talked about him earlier in the DFS talk, Sammy Watkins. I said, he is the most complete wide receiver on that team. I don't care what the Tyreek Hill truthers say. I'm not going to get into a Tyreek Hill debate because I said I wasn't going to badmouth that guy anymore. But you look at offenses that score. The Chiefs score. They average over 35 points per game. Right now, Sammy Watkins is not a regular in a ton of fantasy football lineups unless teams are really weak at wide receiver. This is your opportunity to buy somewhat low on a guy that maybe another guy isn't starting, but could easily fill into a starting role on your team. I would love the idea of going to get Sammy Watkins. I actually did it a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just pumped about it.
I mean, for me, Sammy Watkins, too inconsistent, too short since he came from Buffalo. I just don't like him. He shrunk in that height situation, and ever since he's shrunk, I just can't jump on the Sammy Watkins plane. He was so tall in Buffalo, he left there, and now he's short.
Everyone's bigger in Buffalo. Look at Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah, he's huge.
One other guy that I think you should target, especially after the news from today, is Kenny Golladay. We saw Golden Tate get sent to Philly. What I think that results in is more targets for Golladay. He started out super hot. He's since cooled down, though, a little bit. But I think Detroit's going to realize he is the future of the position on that team. Like, he is the next wide receiver that they need to build around. So I think you can take advantage of his low scoring outputs the last few weeks. His targets are going to go up. With targets are the receptions, the yards, hopefully some more touchdowns. Stafford's still good for about 2 touchdowns per game. That damn tight end isn't going to catch him all the time. So I'm all about trying to get on Kenny Golladay right now.
I mean, that's facts.
Yeah. Do you have anyone
There's
else
not much to say there.
Anyone you want to pinpoint?
Yeah, I actually just came up with a couple. Obviously, I like Aaron Jones. I think a lot of people would agree. Trade for Aaron Jones. Ty Montgomery now gone, talking too much shit. He won't be taking a third of his... it seemed like they were rotating every third possession, which was the worst coaching strategy of all time.
Yeah, I don't like that strategy.
Clearly, Jamal Williams is not a runner. And if you paid attention to that game, when Aaron Jones was in, that's when the team would drive. It opened up everything because you had to actually look at the running back when he's on the field. With Jamal Williams and Ty Montgomery, you don't focus on the running back. actually made a threat at running back out there, Aaron Jones, 12 carries for 84 yards, a touchdown, going to dominate the rest of the season. So he's a guy that's going to make a nice playoff run for you.
My only beef with adding Jones, I agree with every single thing you said, and I think that the Packers are a better team if they can get him even like 10 to 15 carries per game. He doesn't need to get 20, 25 carries like a lot of running backs. He can be impactful and be fantasy relevant with like 10 to 15, maybe a couple catches out of the backfield. What scares me is it seems like the Packers will run him early, and then as the game goes on, they just seem to kind of phase out the running game as the game goes on. I'd just be a little bit nervous that if you trade for him, one, that hopefully you don't give up too much, and two, it's like, do you want to count on him as a weekly starter, or maybe it ends up just being like spot play?
Yes, weekly stardom. That is what they did this week. They did the opposite this week. They started him. He almost saw no carries the rest of the first half.
Right.
Second half, he actually got more involved. That's when the offense started to pick up. That's when he scored his long touchdown. And I think that's ultimately like the Mike McCarthy, Goody Kunz, like, I need to talk to you. If you aren't giving this guy ball more, then we're gonna have an issue.
Right.
Like, once he does that, it's the decision's been made.
Yeah.
So my next one.
Go ahead.
Is every Seahawk sell high. I look at their previous schedule. They had the Lions, the Raiders, the Rams, whose secondary struggled, and the Cardinals. Those are some nice matchups for your fantasy teams. I go ahead and look going forward. I've got the Chargers. I've got the Rams again. I've got the Packers, who I think the defense is good. And then the Panthers. Just for those games, plus they have to face the Vikings yet. I don't like this team. I think that their offensive line still struggles. I think they're going to struggle to score the rest of the season here with the better defenses they're facing. And I would just sell Doug Baldwin, T.Y. Hilton. Not T.Y. Hilton.
Hang on to him.
I'm blanking on his name right now. Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Whatever running back you may have from their team, I wouldn't touch him either.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, sell them all.
I got offered, it's funny that you mentioned them today, because someone offered me Chris Carson in a trade, and I said I literally can't make room for him on my roster right now because I don't think what they're doing is super sustainable. And I don't want to rely on a Seahawks running back with that offensive line with that schedule coming up on a week-to-week basis. So if I'm going to make a trade right now, it's likely going to be for an impact guy that I want to start every week. And I'm not quite sure. Like, Carson's had some good success recently, but like you said, I don't know how sustainable that is. So I'm probably passing on them as well.
I'm going to pass on that dog.
Let's knock out one real quick listener start sit question before we wrap it up. Speaking of Aaron Jones, you can pick him at the New England Patriots, or you can go with Derrick Henry at the Dallas Cowboys.
I honestly don't even know how this was questioned. Number one, Aaron Jones is playing against New England, who's one of the worst run defenses in the league, and Dallas is one of the better run defenses in the league. Henry is just not going to be used. Either is Deion Lewis. Actually, both those running backs are just throw them out the window. Shitty to have on your team. Aaron
so
Jones,
unfortunate.
Easy, and I'm disappointed that this question was asked to us. Go play CBS. Go play CBS fantasy football.
I'm also going to go with Aaron Jones. I've lost faith in Henry, and that pains me to say so much. I was the biggest Derrick Henry supporter. But yeah, I just see more opportunities for points in this Packers game. And you could take Derrick Henry 15 carries and Aaron Jones 10 carries, and I'll take what I think Aaron Jones gets out of his 10 carries.
Aaron Jones 7 carries.
Yeah, you could even lower it. Yeah. But I just think that there's just more opportunity for points. Aaron Jones is going to be the running back. Like you said, Jamal Williams is kind of just a change of pace guy at best. So, yep, I'm with you on that one. All right, well, with that, let's wrap this puppy up. Thanks again for listening. As always, tweet us any fantasy football start sit questions, whatever you may have, trade debates. We're found on Twitter at LoadedBox. Tune in literally in like a day or two. We're going to be dropping another podcast. It's going to be breaking down all of the games, what teams we like straight up, what teams we like against the spread, the ones that we're actually betting on, just our typical against the spread weekly picks. Check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com, all of our blogs, podcasts, everything there. That's all I got. DJ, why don't you go ahead and send us out?
Cheers. Bye.